Hi and welcome back to my channel. Pinch punch, first of the month. Thank God it's February. January has not been my best ever month. All self-inflicted, focusing on self-sabotage instead of working the plan properly. I'm paying for it, but I feel a bit like a good chance for a new start, first of the month and 4 weeks in this month. So we were asked at group this morning, what's your plans for the month, what's your aims and your goals, and mine is really to stop self-sabotaging and to have consistent losses. So watch this space. Anyway, I'm just going to update you on my blanket. This is where we're at this week with the darker purple edging. I'm showing this Fiona. Hope you're enjoying your crochet too. So it's coming on. Does it show, Joe? The difference in colours?
No, because you're bundling it up a bit. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah. So you can see the difference in the three colours. That worked. Yeah. So it's coming on nicely. I've still got about 5 balls of wool, probably 500 grams to work into it. It's nice and loose, but it's lovely and warm when it's draped over your lap. So yeah, that's me and my crochet. And it really, really does help me to have something to keep my hands busy, because when my hands aren't busy, my mind wanders. I don't know if anybody else finds that problem, and I really don't need that. In group this morning, we were given this little leaflet which says it's your group's turn for the new app. So from Monday we can access the new app on Slimming World. And from the way Naomi described it, from the little bits it says in this leaflet, it is going to be a lot better. No scanner, no barcode scanner will ever come to Slimming World apparently, because Sins change too regularly, they couldn't keep up with it. There are, I think Naomi said, 44,000 Sins in the back of my books. Must admit, don't use it, can't read it. But should we be focusing on Sins anyway? It's Free Food February, and we're going to have a free food festival this week apparently. Young Slimmer of the Week next week, and then we've got on the following week a cook-in. Now I don't know totally what that consists of yet, but could be some good stuff in our group because we've got some fabulous cooks. So we were given this leaflet this morning, and from Monday we have the information on how to access the new app at Slimming World. Now I don't think every group will have received that this week because it's being rolled out across the country. We are very close to the head office where we live, very few miles away from Sparkly Towers or whatever it's called. So maybe they're rolling it out down the country or up the country or out across the country, I don't know. But I think it's going to be a process rather than everybody gets it on Monday. And I don't think it really means one area is better than any other. It's just obviously they've got a way of doing this with technology and everything. So if you haven't had that this week, look out for it in your group, because access to the new app I think will be an improved thing for all of us. And there are things that the new app does that the old app didn't, and from the way Naomi described it this morning, there are going to be easier ways of finding Sins and healthy extras, and also logging your daily food on it, and it will do all the Sin counting and what have you for you. So that's a good thing. So that'll be a job for Joe on Monday, won't it? I can't actually access it, or the current one. I might have a go at the new one on my iPad and see if it works for me, but I'm not going to hold my breath because I have heard they are trying to develop one for blind people, and I don't know what the latest news is on that. Okay, talking about Sin values, I heard via social media this week that the Sin value of the corn nuggets, the crispy corn nuggets, has doubled. I'm not surprised because I don't know whether I mentioned it in a vlog a couple or 3 weeks ago, but we had bought some and the inside of the bag was so greasy. And apparently that's why the Sin value has increased, because the fat content has gone up in them. I still think that maybe I would have them. I didn't have them very often. I'd only recently tried them and had them a couple of times. But I think I would still have them at 1 Sin. And I usually have, well, when I've had them, the 2 occasions I've had them, I've had 6. So I was having 6 for 3 Sins, and I think I would still have 6 for 6 Sins if I fancied them, because they do taste like something from the chip shop. There's something about them that tastes like real food. And I said to Joe, and I think also to Richard, because I cooked them for Richard one day, I said to him, these taste like, they remind me of something from the chip shop, and it's not, they don't remind me of McDonald's chicken nuggets. I actually think they're nicer than that. I think they remind me of the battered sausage from our chippy. Nice taste, and probably still worth 6 cents, so I may well go there. But we need to be aware of these changes, and I'm sure there are lots of sim changes that occur that I am totally unaware of, and maybe other people are too. So it really is important to try and stay on top of that. One thing that I found this weekend I've been enjoying for 2 sins is, can you show it, Joe?
Yeah.
Is it Asda's own?
Yeah.
Asda's sweet potato mash. This is a 300-gram pot, and it's 2 sins. It doesn't particularly taste buttery. I don't know. I assume it's got butter in it because of the sin content. But it doesn't particularly taste buttery, but it does taste of authentic sweet potato mash, like when you've made it yourself.
Yeah, it does have a little bit of butter in.
But does it say how much?
And
or
milk. It's 1% butter.
1% butter, and that makes it 3 sins. Well, I'm just on the subject of fats and sins. Something Joe showed me this week, which I'd never realised before, is when you buy meat, because we were in Asda and we buy the Aberdeen Angus 5% beef mince. But I wanted some stewing steak because I want to do a beef stew. So I said to Joe, find me one that looks really lean. And so Joe picked up the 480-gram one or something, and he said, you can always tell which are the leaner meats because on the back, by law, it has to give you the percentage of fat. So he looked on the back of the stewing, it was diced beef in Asda, and he looked on the back, see I'm looking on the back here, he looked on the back and he said this is 5.2% fat per 100 grams. So it's slightly over the 5% maximum that was.
5.2 grams, sorry.
Sorry,
It tells you in grams, it doesn't tell you in percent.
Yeah, but 5.2 grams per 100 grams is a percentage.
5.2%.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so working it out that way, 5.2% or 5.2 grams per 100 grams, that is slightly over what Slimming World recommend at 5%. You think to yourself, well, 2.2.
It's not 6, is it?
No, it's not 6. It's not mental. Right, so I said to him, show me how that works on some other meats. Show me how it works on pork loin steaks. So we went along and we picked up a pack of pork loin steaks. So they all look pretty similar. They've got visible fat that you can cut off, and we would cut off. But they also have fat that goes through them. Pork loin steaks were 22.5% fat. And I would have bought pork loin steaks thinking, cut the little bit of visible fat off the edge, these are not high fat. But of course pork is saturated in fat, like a lot of other meats, apart from turkey, which is quite low, and chicken. But if you look at that, 22.5% fat for a pork loin steak, even if I cut off all the visible fat, that is still going to be over 5%, it's got to be. But they're tasty. And then I said to him, look at the lamb leg steaks, because that's my favourite. I love lamb leg steaks. Lamb leg steaks are 15%, which is 7.5% less than a pork loin steak. In my head, I would have imagined that a lamb leg steak would have been higher. So there's a good hint for anybody who's interested in looking at things like that. Just look on the back of the packet and it will give you the grams of fat per 100 grams. And remember, as a Slimming World member, trying to stick in our best way to plan. That sounds a bit clumsy, but trying to stick in the best way we can to plan, we should be looking for 5% or less. And even things like minced turkey, because they mince the leg meat of turkey, can be well over 5%. It's worth checking. But that was a bit of an eye-opener for me this week because I'd just never thought of it in such a simple fashion. But thoroughly enjoying that sweet potato mash. It is really nice. And I would eat the whole pot, 300 grams for 3 sins. I'm not very good at sharing food. If you want some of that, there's another one in the fridge. So yeah, that's my food's been okay. My main meals and everything are okay. My self-sabotage is down to what I've been doing in the evenings. But this is my 5th day 100% on plan. And I've actually felt that flame reignite inside me today. in group, because talking about what our plans were for February, what we want to achieve in February, has made me look forward rather than looking back. Yes, I've had a dodgy week. Yes, it's been a bit of a shit week with a few occurrences and things going off this week that have not been ideal. But I didn't think I'd eaten over them. I don't eat over things in the same way. But I am also much more forgiving of myself, which leads me to self-sabotage. I need a strictness in my life that keeps me on plan. I can't do this half-heartedly. One of the things Joe was playing to me in the car the other day was, it was a YouTube guy, wasn't it?
He's a guy who I watch on YouTube.
A guy who Joe watches on YouTube, who is Australian, and he's a serious cyclist.
Yeah, he likes doing those ultra cycle things. Wasn't it from like the west coast to the east coast of America?
Something like that, yeah, because he was talking
Racing
about the
stuff.
elevations and
Yeah.
everything, wasn't it? And I must admit, he was a very motivating guy to listen to. But I didn't understand a lot of it because it was about cycling and endurance and pushing yourself and everything, and I'm not a person for pushing myself in those ways. But what I did take from what the guy said, and you know, like sometimes something just clicks in your mind and you think, I get that. The guy said, life happens for you, life happens with you. Life does not happen to you. And what I took from that was, do you know what? There are some times, like this week has been pretty much for me, when I can feel a bit like a victim, like life and things in life are happening to me or coming at me when I really don't want it. And Joe would tell you, when things start to do that to me, like things are outside of my control and I feel like things are happening to me and I'm a victim, I can get quite angry. I just lose it. I don't tell Joe, I'm a very, like, I go off like a spring. And when I do that, that's when I'm going to start sabotaging myself food-wise. It's not because I'm eating over being upset or being emotional. For me, it's being powerless, being out of control, or feeling like life is picking on me. And in several ways this week, I felt that. But when I've sat back and like analysed it, it was all in my head. Life was not picking on me. Things went wrong this week that cost money to put right. But the bottom line is, nobody's dead, well, apart from my auntie's brother whose funeral is on Monday, but that's not affecting me. Nobody's dead, nobody's dying, nobody's wounded, nobody's injured, nobody's in dire straits. What the hell am I worried about? And I think that's something in life I need to learn about. I need to learn that life happens with us, life happens for us, but to stop feeling like a victim and thinking that I'm being like picked out to be persecuted. Because oh my God, can I go down that road very easily? And this week has been tough, but it's been teaching me a lesson. And then I thought about it, you know. Sometimes I pray, not like religiously, as in I don't do it every day at a certain time. I don't mean religiously in the way of not as in faith, I mean as in a daily practice. I pray when I'm at the kitchen sink, sometimes I pray when I'm in the shower or sitting on the toilet or lying in bed or we're driving in the car. It's a conversation with God, that's what I see prayer as. So I pray. But one of the things I've been praying for a bit lately is patience. And then I made myself laugh because I was thinking, you pray for patience, you're asking to be tested. Because you're not going to learn patience unless something's coming against you and testing you. So I've stopped praying for patience. I'm back in a situation now where I'm praying more about gratitude and thankfulness. And, you know, guide me in the right direction, keep me positive, fire me up, get me all enthusiastic about this plan again, Lord. Because praying for patience did not seem to be cutting it in January. He was like, you want to be patient? I'll teach you ways of being patient. No, I don't really think that was the way I should have been going. Anyway, reading this week, 2 books. I've read 2 books this week. I've completed 2 books this week, and both by the same author, an author I mentioned last week, who is Peter May. The first book was Red Bones, and it's one of the early books from the Shetland series. And I think the Shetland series is televised. I think Mum watches it on telly. It's about Jimmy Perez, who's a police inspector in the Shetlands. And I have read every one of the books from that series. I've thoroughly enjoyed them. I bought my mum the whole series. And my mum's 87 and she doesn't read the kind of books I read. But when I gave it to her, she was a bit like, why have you bought me these? And I said, Mum, you'll love his writing. And she flew through those books. And now she's reading the Vera series. I bought her that as well. Red Bones, great book from early in the series. 10 out of 10, thoroughly enjoyed it. Even though it was the second time I've read it, it was probably 4 years since I read it, 5 years maybe. And I heard new stuff in it and I really enjoyed it. And then Shell, being Piece 57, recommended Peter's new book, which must have come out in January because the text copyright dates and that on it and the audio copyright dates are 2020. Now Shell, I might need to talk to you about this book. I did not enjoy it at all. It's totally different writing style for Peter May. Or was it totally different characters? The main character in it, John Mackenzie, didn't like him. Didn't like him as he was in a nasty character or anything. He got on my nerves. 1 minute he's getting beaten up. He gets shot in the chest by a proper gun and a bullet. And his life is saved by his iPhone. This is spoilers really. But his life is saved by his iPhone being in his pocket. Right? So he goes to the hospital. Then he discharges himself. And then half an hour later he's running upstairs, always 2 steps at a time. He never goes upstairs 1 step at a time. Always upstairs 2 steps at a time. Downstairs 2 steps. Who runs downstairs 2 steps at a time? I've never seen anybody do that. The guy is unusual in that I think he's on the autism spectrum because of the way he reacts, and I think you're supposed to see that. But the other characters in the book are too unbelievable. I had worked out the ending. I had worked out that the baddie at the end who...
So spoilers, though.
Yes, spoilers. Well, nobody, people won't... Not
necessarily.
But they can stop listening, suppose. I just did not like the book. It's too unbelievable. And there was only one nice character in it, and that was a little boy. It was weird. There was a blind deaf lady in it, and I thought he wrote most of her parts very well. Her blindness was believable. Her deafness was believable. The combination of the two wasn't. It just wasn't believable. So, Shell, I'll be ringing you. We need to talk about this book because I know Shell enjoyed it. Don't take what I say as gospel. You might love the book, and I'm sorry if I've spoiled it. But yeah, I would be interested if anybody has already read it. Give me some feedback because it's a book that just left me... I actually woke up early this morning so I could finish it before I went to group. But it just left me thinking, well, what was the point of any of that then? But I'm not the best book critic because I have very personal taste in reading. So you might read it, you might love it. And I'm sorry, I really apologise if I've spoiled it for you, but there is a lot more in the book than that. So yeah, they're the books I've read. I'm going to go on and read somebody else this week. I think I'll have a little bit of a break from Peter May. So, went to group. Oh no, before I say this about group, I have had a few questions on last week's... Yeah, he needs to go to work. I've had a few questions on last week's video. I'll make a video tomorrow answering those few questions. So if you're interested, look out for that. Group this morning, brilliant. Got on the scales, put on 2.5 pounds. Was not in the slightest way pissed off, even though this is my 5th day, 100% on plan. Because when I went off plan at the weekend, I went off big time. I knew what I was doing. And in a way, I was joking with Joe about it. I said, this is a bit like the Last Supper. You know that feeling where you know you're going to blow it and you think to yourself, it's all right, I'm going to go back on plan tomorrow, so I might as well make the most of it. I think everybody's done that at some point, or I assume everybody's done that at some point. Well, when I do that big time. I can do that with £35 worth of chocolate. I don't do it with 1 bar, 1.5 bars. I do it big time. So the £2.5 gain I got this morning was light compared to what I deserved because I was worse than bad. And hey ho, that's life. I'm admitting to it. I get what I deserve. I always believe my weight loss reflects very much. If not this week, it would reflect next week. But I say this is my 5th day, 100% back on plan. I'm fired up again, and we'll see where it takes me. I'm hoping to weigh less at the end of February than I weighed at the beginning. That's all I can say. I'm not going to make any excuses because there aren't any. Everything I do is down to me. Nobody forces me to do anything. I'm not that kind of person. Anyway, brilliant week of learning experiences, and I've took some of it on board. I will be back next Saturday, but hopefully I'll do that little Q&A video tomorrow. And thank you to everybody who's commented, because you really do make a massive difference in my journey. And I love the fact that people out there know how I feel because they've experienced it too, and they're prepared to share it. So bless a lot of you, and thank you. And I'll see you next Saturday if you don't watch the Q&A. If you do, I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.